Hi everyone, how are you? I often get asked this question because I'm a pilot, but I'm also a coach. And people say, well, what does flying an airplane have to do with coaching? Is there anything that's in connection with those two parts of the work that you do? There's everything to do with flying and coaching. Let me tell you a little bit about that. So both of them require preparation and planning. When you're a pilot, you have to do a lot of extensive flight planning before you ever touch an airplane, looking at the weather conditions, the final destination, the kind of landing conditions that you have over there. There's a lot of planning that's involved in that process. And with coaching, there's a lot of planning involved with any coaching session that you have with a client. You don't just connect and sit there and talk to the person. There's a lot of understanding in terms of what this person is, the perspective they have on the topics that they're going to talk about, some points of resistance. There's a lot involved in really understanding what is the shift that they need to make to move forward in the direction that they're working with you on. And so preparation and planning is part of it. There's also communication. As a pilot, you need to communicate to air traffic control to make sure that everyone understands that we're on the particular track, we're going in this direction, and there are no obstacles or other aircraft that could affect the safety of that flight. Well, the same thing happens in communication in a coaching context. Of course, coaching is based on the concept of effective communication, communication between the coach and the client, but also for the client to understand the best way to communicate themselves in their internal conversation, their internal dialogue, and that how that affects their external communications to people around. There are other aspects between flying and coaching that are very similar. Decision making under pressure. A pilot has to make quick decisions under pressure and be able to adapt to the situation at hand and be confident that that's a step that they need to take at that moment. A coach has to do the same thing. They have to be able to read and respond to what is happening during the coaching session with the client. Uh, with an individual client, or if you're teaching a workshop with a group of people, you have to be able to adapt with confidence under pressure because sometimes clients don't understand something and they're showing their fears and insecurities. And so they might communicate in a way that if you're not used to that as a coach, you might misinterpret that and react in a way that's not helpful to anyone. So you have to work under pressure and adjust on the fly, as we say in any expression, on the fly, literally when you're flying an airplane, but also on the fly at a moment's notice when you're with a client. Leadership and responsibility, that's key to a good pilot. And it's also key to being a great coach. And to have the leadership in the session doesn't mean to be the powerful person or the one that's going to dominate things, but to guide the process, the journey from A to B if you're flying an airplane, or the journey for that audience, for that client during the client session or during a workshop. To be able to adapt to situations that change, as I mentioned before, is important. And also training and development. It's part of what a pilot does in order to constantly develop him or herself. And a coach is always learning. In fact, every session that you have with a client is a learning experience. And you take all this together to help other clients and to be able to really take your services to that next level. Feedback and improvement is a key thing of what happens when you're flying an airplane. The airplane will tell you if you're doing something correctly or not. You learn how to feel the airplane. Well, guess what? You learn how to do the same thing when you're working with clients. You learn to understand that this particular methodology or approach worked well with that person or group, or maybe not. And so you understand, and the based on the feedback, this direct or indirect feedback from the client, you start to feel what works best for them. And then finally, patience, perseverance. That is a huge part of being a great pilot. You have to be patient. You have to know that things don't happen. You can't force them to happen because that's when you get into very dangerous situations. And patience and perseverance is key to being a great coach. So all these things have to really connect the two worlds of flying an airplane and being a great coach. And that's why I love doing both. And so with that, I wanted to share this message because I get asked that question a lot. And I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to work in both of these areas and to bring them together because now you can see how beneficial it is to have both perspectives. Perspectives flying that airplane in the sky and having the freedom of flight and guiding a client to their own freedom, the freedom to be the best version of themselves. I look forward to seeing you next time. for now, this is Arturo Weiss. See you soon.